Hello, and thanks for joining me for this flip video of the Crafter's Companion box kit number 27. This one is called Modern Edgeables, and the main event for this kit are these two edgeable dies. So this first one is a happy birthday sentiment, and it cuts out this really nice size sentiment, which can be the focal point of your card. And the nice thing about these edgeable dies is that it cuts fully on 3 of the 4 edges, and it leaves one edge still attached to your card. And that's why it's called an edgeable, because it does create these interesting shaped edges. And this particular easel card that I'm creating is one of the card blanks that comes in the kit. So you get the and everything is pre-scored and folded for you. And you also get that additional panel that stands up on your easel, as well as enough cardstock to cut that stopper strip that I have embossed "It's Your Day." And the really nice thing about this kit in particular is that it came with a lot of different card blanks that some I wasn't familiar with at all. So kind of fun to work with this kit, not only because of the really cool edgeable dies, but because of the different styles of card blanks that they have. And this is one that was a little bit new to me, so I actually did go to the crafterscompanionbox.com website, and what's nice is that for all of their kits, if you go to the crafterscompanionbox.com, you'll find their unboxing video as well as some card making videos where if it's a new technique or something that is different, like a new product, they have at least 2 or 3 videos that sort of teach you the technique or teach you how to use the products, and if nothing else, serve as additional inspiration if you're looking for different ideas for your own card making. And so here I'm basically doing what was suggested in one of those videos, where I put some solid color cardstock on the 2 side panels, and then I die cut it. I did go ahead and fussy cut a sort of background layer to this, because when those 2 side flaps are actually closed, part of it hangs off the card, and then part of it you can see the back of the card. So it looked just a little bit weird to see some white and then some, clear through to the back. So this wasn't too hard to fussy cut, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Plus, you don't have to be perfect, since if you cut in a little bit, then it will kind of hide any irregular cuts that you have, and it just seemed to make for a cleaner look to me than to leave it open. So that's the one thing that I did differently. And yeah, I really thought that these edgeable dies were super fun to work with. This one, it's upside down, I guess technically upside down on the left side, but it doesn't look that off to me. So the butterfly is oriented kind of upside down, so that's probably the part that looks most obviously upside down, but otherwise it looks fine. It's not so glaringly weird. So it's nice to be able to use this die in multiple orientations, and I didn't try using it as a kind of a more landscape orientation, but it could probably work. And so here I'm just stamping out my sentiment. I don't have a ton of ink pads, and so I did have to pull out my Distress Oxides to do some stamping, and they're not always the best for stamping, and these are acrylic stamps and not photopolymer, so that does offer a little bit of a challenge too, because I did notice that the ink did tend to kind of bubble up on the surface, and that's even after um, taking a white eraser to uh, the top of the new stamp, which is something that I always do to kind of prime my stamps before using them. And then I often do what I'm doing here, which is to stamp it out several times just to get it primed until it can make a really nice solid image or impression. But usually with my VersaFine, I don't have any problems at all. But as you can see, as the pigment ink does dry, it does sort of even out. So initially it may not look great, but eventually it does even out. So here what I'm using is what's technically really just scraps. So these are just pieces that fell out of the die cut, but they still read as a positive image. And so I've got a couple of single leaves, and then I've got this little branch of leaves, and then these kind of decorative swooshes are pretty cute too. So I thought it was a fun way to kind of bring the pattern into the center panel and to add a little bit more green to fill out this panel, since there was just so much white space. The other thing that I really liked about this kit was these kind of swooshy sentiments with the little leading and trailing decorative swooshes. They're really nice. I actually don't have stamps like that in my stash, so I was really happy to see those. And then this is another really cool card blank, and I guess it's a accordion or maybe a concertina fold card. Definitely not one that I've done used before, and so always really super excited to get a new card blank. And with these, if it's a style of card that you really enjoy, you can always keep one as a template, and then that way when you want to make that style of card again, you'll always have a template to refer back to. And I wasn't 100% sure if I'm supposed to decorate the back of this card, because I don't know how people would normally open this. Would they open it up completely like you see here, or do they just open the first flap, or was I supposed to decorate the other side? I wasn't 100% sure because it's not a card style that I've seen. But here's another example of that really decorative sentiment stamp, which I really, really love. And it was funny because when I first saw the stamp set, I thought it was strange that they didn't have a birthday sentiment, because usually they always have a birthday sentiment in their stamp set, but clearly the edgeable die that they include says happy birthday, so it kind of makes sense that they didn't have it. But I thought it'd be fun to add a couple of these sentiments to this card, especially since there's just so much card to decorate. So I thought I would include a few. And I'm not, again, still not sure whether I designed that card just right, but I liked it. So I guess that works. This one is my interactive card, and so I'll just be creating a shaker card where I'm using that happy birthday edgeable die to create a cool edge to my shaker window. And initially I thought this sort of sherbet orange color seemed way out of left field because none of the pattern paper actually has this orange color in it, and yet the orange color was so prominent in the kit. It's one of the ribbon colors, it's one of the colors in the flatback pearls, and you get the solid color cardstock as well. So I really felt that I had to use it and figure out, how to coordinate it with the paper that comes in the kit. Because clearly it's there for a reason, and these kits are, specially curated so that everything does go together so that it's easy for you to really, create and design with. And so I took it as a challenge to use it. And I think it matched pretty well with this shade of green in the end. And so that's the other thing that I really appreciate about not just the Crafter's Companion box kits, but about kits in general, is that because they're always so carefully curated, at least I always learn something different about colors and patterns and, just how to coordinate things together, because they've already done the majority of the work for you by, hand picking items that should go together. And so it's always really nice to kind of learn new aesthetics and to, work outside of my comfort zone and try some new things. And I do like for my shaker cards to make noise, so I like to add these seed beads. And as you saw earlier, I just buy my foam in sheets, and they already have adhesive on one side. And so what I do to prepare these strips is, just as you saw, I used some of my double-sided adhesive tape and lay down strips of it, and then I just cut it with a utility knife. And what's really nice is that since I do have different widths of double-sided adhesive tape, I can always create whatever width foam strip that I need. I don't have to buy different foam strips. I can just cut what I need when I need it. Okay, so then this is going to be my last card, and it's my pop-up card. I knew when I saw these dies that I wanted to try to make the sentiment pop out in the card. And so this is definitely, I don't even know if it would be possible to do with a regular die, but because these edgeable dies do leave the bottom of the image attached to your card still, all you have to do is a partial die cut where you leave a portion of the top still attached, and that way this can be folded and then popped out from the center of or inside of the card. So here I'm just going to add some score lines for where I'm going to fold. So I'm going to put one score line at the bottom and then one at the top for basically just the top of the image. And then I have to figure out how far out from the card I want this to pop out. And then I'll add an additional score line at the top for that. So while I did this with the solid color cardstock, I did do this entire step over again with white cardstock that was a heavier weight, because ultimately this felt a little bit flimsy for me, and since as a main part of the pop-up experience, I wanted it to be a little bit more stable, and so I did the exact same thing you saw me just do, but in a heavier weight white cardstock. I'll still use the colored panel. You'll see that in a second where I adhered that to this panel, but at least this way there's a little bit more structure and a little bit more weight to it. And I think if I had to do it over again, maybe I wouldn't have cut so far up the edge of the die. I think I would have tried to leave a little bit more attached to the card. So I might try this again just to see if I can get it to look a little bit cleaner, a little bit neater. But I like it. I like how it turned out, and it's definitely a pretty cool effect, and it's a nice way to use these edgeable dies because while it may not necessarily be intended to be used this way, I know that Crafter's Companion does sell specific dies to achieve this pop-out effect, and now you can actually just do it with your edgeable dies using this technique. So I think that just gets even more use out of the dies. So the other thing that I didn't really think about ahead of time was decorating my the interior of the card before I attached the pop-up mechanism. So I did that for the top portion, but the bottom portion, I was just so excited to see whether the pop-up would work that I didn't lay down some pattern paper on the bottom before attaching the pop-up. It doesn't look bad, but I think it would have looked a little bit cleaner if that sort of zigzag pattern went all the way to the fold instead of just starting from the bottom of the pop-up. And as is often the case when I do my pop-up cards, the front of the card is sometimes a little bit of an afterthought, but I did think that it would be kind of neat to use this edgeable die as a stencil. And so that's what I'm doing here with just some Distress Oxide ink that I'm inking right through and over the edge of the edgeable die just to create this really soft kind of look. And I'll distress the whole, all around the four edges of the card just to make everything look a little bit more consistent with that design. It almost looks like kind of spray paint. That's sort of what it reminds me of. And I'll do some more inking on these panels as well. I do like to keep the outside of my pop-up cards kind of understated and simple in a way, just so that it's all the more surprising when they open it up. And so I'm keeping everything very monochromatic and leaving all of the kind of fun, bright colors for when you actually open your card and get the big happy birthday sentiment. And so I'm gonna do, so you'll probably notice I'm using VersaFine, and these stamps do ink really well. It's just I had a really hard time stamping the sentiment with the Distress Oxide inks. And the only reason why I had to do this particular sentiment multiple times is because I think I had some fuzz or something that was on my stamp, and it kept kind of leaving these really faint ink marks, and that's what I thought it was me and how I was stamping, but then when I looked at the stamp, it was actually because something was stuck on there. So once I realized that, everything stamped out just fine. So so these stamps, even though they're acrylic, they're actually really nice. They stamp really well. So I know that you kind of probably saw me struggle with stamping a few times in this video already, but rest assured it was me, not the product. So now that I've got my two panels here, I I'm gonna complete this card. And I think it actually turned out really well. I like using the die cut as a stencil, and then now that I've inked that die cut, I'll probably use it on a different card because it's got that pretty ink already all over it. And I did want to pop up this panel with some foam, and so I'm making what looks like a mess, but these are actually just scraps of foam. So sometimes I'll die cut out of my foam sheet to have an element that's fully backed edge to edge with foam. And rather than throwing out, the offcuts or what's left of the foam, I'll just use it like this, where nobody's gonna see all of that mess anyways. So it doesn't need to be a perfectly solid piece of foam, and there's no sense in just throwing it away because it has weird edges. So now it's time to decorate these cards, and this kit was actually a little bit different from the previous ones because not only does it include the flat back pearls, but it also includes these clear rhinestones or gemstones, which I actually really like a lot because they're similar in that you get the 3 different sizes in the 3 different colors, but what's really nice is that the largest size rhinestone is the height of it is not as tall as the largest size flatback pearl. So I always worry that those pearls will have a hard time going through the mail. And since I put most of my cards through the mail, I have not often used the largest pearl, but I don't think that's the case with the rhinestones. They're a little bit flatter, so I don't think they'll present as much of an issue with postage. So here's a recap of the 4 cards that I made. This is my flat card, although I think I cheated a little bit because the happy portion is actually 2 layers of cardstock instead of just the one. But it's close. This is my first layered card, and I may not have done this style of card correctly. I don't know how somebody would normally open it, if they would open the front flap one way and then open the second flap the other way. I'm not sure, but this is another fun fold card that came in the kit. I'm not even sure what style of card this is called, but it's new to me. And again, I really enjoy the fact that this kit had a lot of new card blank styles and much different than the standard 5x7 or A2 cards that I'm more used to making. So definitely had a lot of fun working with this kit. And my favorite out of the cards that I made is probably the pop-up card because I love this happy birthday die. It's really large. It's a big kind of sentiment that can be a statement piece and a real focal piece. And it's really nice to know that you can use it as one of these pop-up elements. And I'll need a little bit more practice just to get that top edge a little bit cleaner, but it definitely works. And so I'm really happy to have discovered that these edgeable dies can work in that way. So really excited for that. Well, thank you for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed my cards, and until my next video, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.